We appreciate you staying with us. At this point, we want to turn to a different discussion altogether. Just as I hinted already, we want to look at not just 2019, but as we start a new year now, second day of the year, by the way, already. What exactly should be the expectations, and how do we hope to accomplish many of the goals we've set, particularly as a country? Three gentlemen are here to help make sense of this discussion on the program this morning. I would love to begin from my far left. Honorable Fred Uigwe is a politician and an economist. We appreciate you for coming through this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers. Happy New Year to you all.
In the middle is Bishop Austin Igbasan, a very passionate public affairs commentator. We also appreciate you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers.
Next to him is a gentleman, a young man, very vibrant, quite knowledgeable about social and political issues as well. Somebody once told me he's a young man with promise. We don't want to talk about all of those this morning. We appreciate you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And by the way, congratulations on your new appointment as SSA on digital media to the governor. We appreciate you for coming, gentlemen, this morning. Let me begin with Fred Uigwe. Fred, you and I have talked about national issues here many more times than I can count all my fingers combined. 2019 has ended. There's little or nothing we can do about that here. We've started a new one right now. Many persons are saying, hey, a lot of big things will happen in Nigeria. Is that just mere optimism, or is it on account of the extent to which we're prepared to see big things happen in this country?
You see, we sometimes equate wish lists to planning and concrete goals.
Okay.
And it really doesn't work like that. Economics really doesn't work like that. Economics is so real. It's not something you just discuss in the abstract. For those who actually follow economic trends and analyze economic dynamics, you know, for them, there is a strong reality about changes and outcomes and processes. That said, I went back to look at where we're coming from, where we are, not too deep. Like I was listening to some other analysts sometime, not too long, I think just yesterday actually. We have heard of promises and plans and programs since when we were young. Okay, we're talking about 5 decades and plus. Okay, we've been hearing of those things, and it's the very same things we are still hearing. It's not getting us anywhere. There's a saying that if you keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, then it's a sign of insanity.
Okay, if you keep doing the same things and expecting different results.
Yes, and expecting different result, then it's a sign of insanity. That's what the saying goes. And that seems to be where we are. I went back to 2015, for example. Our GDP that year was $481 billion. The very next year, it dipped. We know the reasons for the dip, the global oil market and all of that. So that year it was 317. Okay, and then 2018, come to 2018. I mean, yes, 2018, you have 398. So when you go back to 3-4 years back, you see that we have not really risen up to where we were 4-5 years ago. And one expects to make progress year to year. So I went also to look at, to compare the third quarter of 2018, 2019, which is the latest figure we can have right now, because 2020 is fresh. So the figures are not yet out.
Right.
So went to look at 2019 third quarter and compared it to the previous year, 2017. We had a 2.28% increase. So when you look at 2 years 2 failing years, then you can begin to think that you are making progress. But where we really need to get to is get back to when we were doing very well and go beyond that. What are our strategies to doing that? We were talking about the speech by the president. The president reeled out a number of things, mentioned a whole number of things, but going through the speech is just the same talking points that we've always had, with veiled threats and all of that. Nothing concrete. In many cases where we're expecting numbers, there were no numbers to guide us, to give us expectations, to know what direction we should go. When you're presenting a report, because the New Year report is supposed to reflect what happened the previous year and project for the upcoming year.
Most times in figures, in clear,
specific... So in clear terms, in clear figures. We read about the promises by Angela Merkel,
the
German Chancellor.
Yeah.
But there were no details, there were no figures as to what exactly they were going to do. But we know that, okay, Germany, reputable, Germany, quite successful, Germany, a very dynamic economy. We know that any form of assistance from Germany or from such countries, Japan, US, UK, we know it's going to be beneficial to us if we can manage it and if we guide it properly. But we still need figures. We still need to know where we were and what is being added so that we can project on what we are going to do. So these are some of the things I think we're failing in that speech. And I think we can do better than that.
Okay. Let's talk about doing better. Bishop Igbasa, you are very keen when it comes to issues that have to do with politics and real development, right? You look at 2020, this is the year Nigeria is billed or scheduled to become one of the 20 biggest economies in the world. And a lot of persons have argued to say, look, we're not just going to get there because we wish to. Just as Freddie Igwe said, there's a clear-cut difference between a wish list and actually having a plan and concrete action to be able to execute that plan. 2020 is a year of promise, really, isn't it?
It's a year of promise, and it's like somebody that got married and refused to have sex with his wife and is trusting God for twins or triplets. Except it is IVF. I didn't see any magic behind it. So if we're talking, I've been able to peruse the speech yesterday, and I felt that just making a statement that we are going to be this, we had 2020 long ago,
right,
that Project 2020 and the rest of them. But I think that what we have on what was said yesterday, what to me was not concrete enough, giving a direction of where we are going. We repeated the same thing, like we fight corruption. I was elected to do this. I was elected to do that. I think that if we are going to shape our political space, we must be able to look at one of the things that will make us giant is that let's look at the elections we have in 2019. We'll be able to look at, as a government, you look at your performance, just like my brother here mentioned, you look at your performance in the previous year and you are able to look at the areas you have failed. If we're going to move forward, we must be able to identify our area of failure. I take you back again to the days of late President Yaradua. He was elected, and he was truthful enough to say the election that brought me into power was marred with irregularities, and I'm going to start by handling electoral reform, which the man eventually, I've never seen a truthful person who is so open like that late president. And that's one of the best leaders we have ever lost in this country, because the man means so much well, but health was not on his side. Now, he said the election that brought me, but today we see our leader who knew that the election that brought them is marred with irregularity, but they will be clapping and said, INEC has done excellently well. This is the best election in the history of the world. How do you make a change in such situation? when you don't identify the area, when you are not truthful enough to be able to say, though we did this, we did that. We look at the issue of our election. We are not able to transmit electronically, and money was made available for electronic transmission. Last year, the money were deployed. What has happened to those equipment? What has INEC done with that? These are areas we should be able to identify and say, as a nation, we conduct few elections, and we saw it was marked with irregularities. We are going to hit it from there and project. I didn't say anything in that direction, but all what we saw was that election was peaceful and all the rest of them, with all the contentions and all the rest of them. We cannot make a meaningful progress by just talking to God. There are things that God has given us ability to do that we don't need to invite him. It's like somebody want to go to toilet now, and he said, God, oh, I'm on the toilet now, come and help me to poo-poo. When God has given you ability to eat and help you to digest the food, and is giving you a process to defecate, now you don't say it is God that will do it for you. To me, I didn't see a concrete, as a leader of a church, I was able to identify the areas we failed. What we put in place last year that doesn't work, then how do we shift from that particular method that didn't work for us, and what do we do to be able to get things done, to get more souls, to be able to help the poor, to be able to do these things. These are like at the beginning of this government, I heard about Lagos Calabar railway. So much money was allocated for it. I've gone through Lagos to Calabar now. I've not seen, maybe it's being done in the inside the sky. Now, the second year budget was made for Lagos Calabar rail. The third year budget was made for Lagos Calabar rail. I didn't know how far it has gone now, but except it is being done where it is not seen. But if it is being seen, I have not seen Lagos Calabar with all the money allocated in the budget of 2015, 2016, 2017. I have not seen how far. Maybe they have gotten to worry from Lagos and all that. These are things we should be talking about, that in this area we have not done well. We saw the election that happened that we did in 2019. We saw that it was a show of shame. Do we talk about that one? What are the things that took us from 2015 digitalized election and have taken us backward to analog, to this level? We are card reader now. Does not even matter. In the last election we did, and we are gradually, what have we done as far as the Supreme Court judgment that card reader is not even recognized by our law? What has been done to that effect? What about the electronic transmission that money was budgeted? National Assembly signed it, and at the end of the day, INEC came to tell us they don't have a server. We have a server, there's no server, there's this and that. We cannot transmit election, and yet the money allocated for those equipment have been given to INEC. Has it been bought? Where are those equipment? When we are going to do the next election, like I just said, now we are going to have an election in 2020. Right. And they said they are test run transmission. They did a test run with Osun and the rest of them. But when it comes to the issue of Bayelsa and Kogi, we didn't see even the general election. It was not transmitted. So what have we done in that regard? The money that was allocated, was it spent? Where are those equipment? The next election we are going to do, is INEC going to transmit electronically with the money voted for it? Let us know. To me, I saw us do a match time now. It is not about prayer. I'm a prayer man, I'm a man of prophecy, but you don't prophesy to a situation where you are prophesying that somebody will be a millionaire, and he didn't learn carpenter. He's not a plumber. He's not ready to go to tutorial class. He's not ready to go to Unibe. And you say God is going to make him a millionaire. How is he going to do it?
By faith.
By faith. Faith without work is dead on arrival. That's why
I was just being quietly sarcastic, but it's okay.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that's why I don't keep people in church in the afternoon. I thank God for churches that are doing it.
They have to be at work.
I want them to be at work. That's why we don't do service on Christmas Day in our church. The reason is that I also know that when Jesus was born, there was census going on. People were allowed to go back to their village. That's why I allow our people to go back. I don't contradict any church that is not doing such. But I just felt that if somebody have attended the church from beginning of the year to the end, there is time to go and meet his family, meet his father and mother, or be able to share some things within his. That's why we don't do service on Christmas Day. We do service before Christmas and allow people to go around and relate with their family, because that family life and value is gradually wiping away. Everybody sees village as a place of witches and wizards. Now that was where we grew when we were very small, and our parents grew from there. So I saw it as a system to return back home. So to me, I have not seen our arrangement that we have put in place. Just like my brother said here, what are the figures? What are the areas we have failed? Have you discovered that even our present government today, they don't believe that they fail in any area? Even when we are borrowing to eternity, they will say that is the way to go about. So when you don't identify, a man has a low sperm count, and a doctor told you have a low sperm count, he said, no, I cannot have low sperm count. Then how will that man build the sperm count to be able to impregnate his wife? So what I felt is that we are yet, our government have failed to recognize their area of failure. And if you look at the speech, the government didn't believe that they failed in any area. So when you don't have a projection and you don't look at the areas you fail, and you don't believe that you failed in one area, how do you build up in that area? How do you correct yourself? How do you have a projection that this is our target for this area, but we failed in that area? When you criticize those who show you your area of failure, then how do you build up from there?
Okay, we're going to keep building up on this conversation, but just to let our viewers watching us know that we want you to lend your voice to this discussion we're having. So we're putting a number, a WhatsApp text message only, that's SMS only number for you on the screen. Then, of course, we can also do also your tweets, which means you can contribute to this discussion we're having via tweets. The handle will be on your screen in a bit. And, of course, we're also making sure that for those who are watching online, you can keep up with the pace of this conversation. But let me come to you now, Samedi. Young people, I was reading something on Twitter yesterday night. A lady was saying that no matter how talented, how empowered, how educated young people are, if they don't pay attention to politics. Now, she said if they don't pay attention, she's not necessarily saying they have to be politicians, they have to be partisan politicians, but they have to know what's happening. They can't afford to be ignorant of things happening within the political sphere. If they don't pay attention, they shouldn't be surprised when they wake up one morning, their livelihoods are being legislated away, whatever that means. Do you think, as of today, young people are interested enough in what's going on? Because a lot of persons have said that's a fact. I mean, these two gentlemen have talked about how that we didn't do well, essentially, in 2019. Are people even asking questions? Are people interested enough to want to push the conversation about, we are here today, we ought to have been here already by now? I mean, to what extent are we doing that?
Well, it's the dawn of a new decade. It's 2020.
Okay.
And just yesterday, we heard very powerful speeches from the president of the country and also the governor of Edo State. I like to begin by saying that, reflecting on the quotes, they say that if young people or if the public in general do not pay attention to politics, they give room for people who are inferior to lead them. And as such, I believe just 2019 was an election year, and we discovered that more than 50% of the votes were actually cast by the youth population.
Okay.
In other words, the determinants of how elections go, the results of elections, are actually determined by the youth population. But how informed and how informed are the youth population as regards the polity and the way governance is actually run in the country? I want to say that going by the speech of the governor yesterday, he talked about a lot of opportunities that will be coming on board. So that's the governor of Edo State, Gordon Obaseki. He mentioned a lot of opportunities that will be coming on board via agriculture, the agricultural sector. He mentioned the fact that the Central Bank of Nigeria just some weeks ago decided to invest about 70 billion naira on agriculture in the state. So basically, if you go by that narrative and the fact that we have a government, especially in Edo State, that really wants to nurture the youth population, it means that is the way to go.
Are the youths themselves really interested? Because it will be, when you sample opinions amongst young people, I mean, this is a unique demographics in itself, right? You realize that most times they're disconnected from what's going on because they're not really interested. And they don't have a problem with that. Of course, you have those who want to run away to wherever it is because they feel they can't find a sense of belonging. Yes, exactly. Opportunities are very limited. By the way, the World Bank is saying for Nigeria to make meaningful progress in the next 1 decade, we should be able to provide at least or create 30 million jobs. And that is not going to happen over one weekend, for example. So to what extent are the youth building capacity to be able to understand the issues going on? Because you can't participate in a system you don't understand.
Yes, I believe the bubble just stops at the table of our leaders. If we have leaders who are willing to change the narrative about youth, then you find youths who are interested in the governance process. In the past, in Edo State, because I like to talk about our immediate environment.
Right.
In the past, in Edo State, we used to have governments that did not actually were interested about developing the youth or giving them opportunities. The only opportunities we had in the past, especially in Edo State, was opportunities in Togri, opportunities in acting as scouts for various governments. But with the coming of the Governor Obaseki administration, he has made sure that he gets rid of that mentality and that's part of the policy. So he has gotten rid of Togri, he has gotten rid of touts, and he has ensured by creating opportunities that would engage youths meaningfully, such as he has brought about the innovation hubs, and he has also brought about production centers that is right there at Sabero. He has also tried to bring investments, which I just mentioned,
right.
The agricultural investment especially, which brought the CBN government to Edo State, and they pledged 70 billion naira to develop the Edo State oil palm program. So I believe it all stops at the table of our government. If we have governments who are willing to engage the youth positively,
right.
then the youths are willing, because I believe the average Nigerian youth is actually a very intelligent person, is a person that is willing to be productive. But when there are no opportunities being provided by the government, there is little or nothing that they can do.
Okay, let me come to you again. I just mentioned the 30 million jobs the World Bank says Nigeria must be able to create for the next 1 decade for us to be able to a large extent, address the issue of poverty and overall unemployment. These things don't happen by magic. I mean, every other month you see the US government adds a specific number of jobs. For example, for the month of December, you could hear something like 189,000 jobs. And then you're comparing that with what happened in November, October, and every other month before. So that becomes a robust basis to project for what you can accomplish on that front going forward. We don't seem to have this environment around here to do all of this. Nigeria cannot categorically be referred to as an industrialized country in the core definition of the word. While that is the reality, what does it take to industrialize a country? I know you are going to mention power. There's no wala about that. I mean, the president already talked about how that for the next 12 months, there will be massive investment, of course, careful implementation of certain actions within the range of generation, transmission, and distribution in that critical sector.
You see, a lot of people, they just put the whole problem of industrialization and economic growth on power.
Okay. It's beyond that, right?
It's way beyond that. It starts from the mindset, the ability to mobilize the people to action, to make changes. We are talking about Nigeria being able to create 30 million jobs over the next, how many years you say?
10 years.
10 years. Create jobs for who? Nigerians who are leaving, the youths who are leaving the country?
But we still have a number of them.
Look, I'm telling you, most of them do not believe that there is hope in the country. They are looking forward, they are looking out to greener pastures somewhere. So who are those who are going to do the jobs? The babies who are not yet grown, or the old people who have retired? We are losing our young men and women in drugs. That's brain drain, especially those who have already gone through college. How do we reverse all that trend? How do we keep our people here? Because if you are not here, now if you were to live here now, who is going to anchor this? Who is going to anchor this program? Maybe somebody else.
I'm sure the organization will hire fresh.
We hire somebody else. But if everybody who comes spends 2-3 months and leaves, then the one who is supposed to be in agriculture leaves. The one who is supposed to be teaching the school leaves. Even the pastors, they leave. Everybody, who is going to stay to develop the place? The place is not going to develop itself. This studio, for example, didn't clean itself this morning. It looks clean and pristine this morning. But people cleaned it, people stayed to do it, to do that job. We have to be able to encourage our children to stay back here and develop it. And the only way you can do it is give them hope. And to give them hope, you have to have programs that they believe in. They have to see it. They have to see that they have opportunities here that will make them bring out their abilities, their talents, to optimize them. That is the way you do it. And that is why we need to introspect. We need to look at ourselves critically and say, okay, these are the areas, like the pastor said, where we have failed. What did we do to bring us to that failure? And then what part of that failure was even good that we can build on? And what part of it should we jettison? Those are things you must do in developing any system. Look, Nigeria has a lot of potential. But that's where we are. But we are not potent. We have potential without potency. That's the problem. We have resources. We have Nigerians who left these shores 20, 30, 40 years ago. Many of them have already retired. And then they worked in very sophisticated environments and industries. And many of them became top professionals in their fields.
Sure.
Okay? And they are still there. Many of them visit home, spend a month, 2, 3, 4 months at home, but there is no skill to make sure that even when they come home, they are able to contribute part of their expertise to the system. And that's, look, for a long time we cried for technological transfer and technical know-how. Now we have people who have the know-how, Nigerians who have the know-how, who come home and do not find opportunities to be able to contribute. That's because there's no such program in place. So these are some of the, you have to look at all your opportunities and capitalize on those opportunities. For communities, I'll tell you, every system is made up of certain categories of communities, okay? Right. The metropolitan areas, that is the urban areas, that's one. You have suburban areas, very close to the metropolitan areas, where you have industries and people who want to enjoy urban systems. Then you have the rural areas, where you have the agricultural industries and all of that. Right. Then you have the specialized areas, where you have special industries and special companies or systems that you want to operate. Like if you wanted to develop a technological industry, you could create an industry specific area and concentrate it there. These are areas that we must first acknowledge, identify, and begin to design templates for. If you have templates for development in all of these areas, you will make progress very easily. And for our youth, in my generation, I know and I remember, we were much more interested in the politics of the day, though we were denied the opportunity to participate like everybody else was, because the military, during my time growing up, the military was in power for 29 years. 32 years from 66 to 1990, 33 years from 66 to 1999, sandwiched with the Shagaris regime of 4 years. So 29 years, it was a repressive government we had, and we had no opportunity to really express or participate in a process that, that could benefit the society. And that is why many of the youths in my generation left, because they could not see them. There was no end in sight as to when the military was going to leave office. So many of our people, they left because there was no opportunity for them to be able to contribute, to be able to grow within the system. But that is not so. So for these youths, I want to say that they must, of necessity, take very serious interest in the process, because the older people are going to die off, they are going to retire, and then you are going to come on board. If you do not come in, then what do you expect will happen? If you do not come in early enough, by the time you come in, you will now be learning what you ought to have learned a long time ago. I want to say this. One of the things the president didn't mention, for example, Nigeria tried, or is still trying, as has been in the papers, to borrow $30 billion.
Approximately 30 billion.
Approximately 30.
We had 29.9 billion.
$30 billion. Safe to approximate.
Yeah.
Okay? And then, in the same breath, the National Assembly is saying we need 37 billion naira
for renovation.
For renovation. If you were a lender, an investor, would you lend money to that person who wants to use part of the money to paint his house?
But the security is high. I mean, the prospect of paying back is there. So
it's not a question of it's not a question of the prospect of paying back. It's the frivolity of what you are spending it on. Because I'm giving you money, okay, you say you will pay me back. I'd rather spend money in an environment that I am sure will be able to grow that money, and then we'll continue to do business. But if I want to send money, I want to loan money to a system, a society that I know is going to just fritter the money away, there's no future there in that relationship. So these are some of the things we should look at these things critically and decide.
In fact, speaking of looking at these things critically, I want to talk to Bishop Igbasan now. They say government is a continuum, right? Yeah. But most times, governance is fractured, for want of better words, because one government comes into office and doesn't even consider continuing a number of the projects from the previous government, even when those projects are laudable and hold the promise of delivering benefits, dividends to the people. How do we also correct that? Because a lot of the problems we're dealing with as a country, they are systemic, and they say systemic problems require a systemic approach.
What happens is that, you see, two things are involved. When somebody gives a project out, maybe a project of 100 million, and the man who gave the money, gave the project out, said, give me 50 million. Use the 50 million to do the project. Now you pay my own upfront. Okay. For your mobilization, maybe you have to pay my 40 million first. Then you go and look for money in the bank to augment and do the work. Then if this job is going to take you 40 million or 30 million, do anything you want to do there. You make your own money, but give my own upfront. Now, by the time the contractor has done that, another government comes in place and look at it that if I continue this project of this man, now what will be the benefit of me who is just coming on board? Let me also strike another project in my own name, and we will go back to the same status quo.
This is a fresh deal.
Yeah, it's a fresh deal. I can't be dealing with a man who has given 50 million to a former governor or a former senator now and said, okay, go and bring from the one. The man said, I settled the other government before. The one that is left is what I'm using to pay my staff and buy something. So the man is going to do a job that is not up to standard, because number one, he has to make his own money from there and also pay the staff and pay back also the loan from the bank and all of them. Right. From the one that is meant, the man is meant to sign 100 million, that is the amount he collected, but in the recess 50 million is what comes into him. So when another government comes, he strikes another road or something. We have seen in this country where borehole is not working, and 2 days to the commissioning, the governor is coming, they have to go and put water tanker inside the storage something, and they open it and they drink it. That is the end. When you come back next week, you will see that that thing is no more working again. So what I think is that until we strengthen our electoral system, that the masses will now have the power. What we have right now is that the leadership have the power. They are in charge of the power. I give you an example.
So we have to shift power to the people.
To the people. We are in people who know that their vote counts. My young man here said 50% of the youth voted. And we knew for sure that in the last election, many people fingerprint does not count. Where people sit down somewhere and return to the days of Pamkane, when we have passed Pamkane level before. We return to Pamkane where people are doing thumbprinting somewhere beside one mosque, beside one area, and they stay there, only one person thumbprinting for a very long time and submitted. At the end of the day, we have gotten to a system in Nigeria that anything you do on election day, in as much we are able to win the election, it will take Almighty God to reverse it there. So we have returned to that level because we weren't there in 2015. You see all these ballot snatching, thuggery, and all of them. When the issue of Kadri that came, you see that everything went down. Now, the crisis we recorded then was low. But when we projected from the issue of 2015, and it now becomes, let us revert back to the old order, you see that killing, shedding of blood, all kinds of things. In country here, we saw where helicopter is helping people to drop tear gas in the eye of masses who are holding the distance. Say, you cannot carry this bus, you cannot carry this bus. And there was tear gas from up. People come for reinforcement and they drop tear gas, and the masses have to run and allow the thugs to have their day. Was it like that before? When we developed a template from the days of Yaradua, and it was built up by Jonathan on electoral reform, and we follow it up, and electoral matter and education was given a specific time. I take it back to the days of Professor Sumbo and that of Comrade Oshomone. It was specified within a time, so that you don't waste the whole time. The person will not use about 2 years to be running government while the case is in court. A period was given under electoral reform that you must finish this case and let the person be sworn in under that electoral reform. 6 that months. Anybody, yes, that anybody again who has benefited from that rough government, we have to pay. That was the next part that they have not reached. Now, what happened to that electoral reform? Everything has been returned back.
So what you're saying is we're making steady progress.
We are not making steady progress.
We're making steady progress.
We were making a steady progress. But now we have gone back now to the days of everybody say, yes, anything you like. If you don't like, people even look at you and say, if brother, it doesn't matter. Somebody the other day was to do election, and the answer saying, let us pray. He said, there's no need for us to pray. He said, we will not pray. He was telling somebody, the person that want to pray for him, say, brother, we don't need to pray. And the man said, he said, we are already there. He was telling the person that want to pray, he said, there's no need to pray. He said, we are already there. And they have not done election. And the person is telling the person that want to pray for him, he said, shall we pray? The person said, don't pray. You don't need to pray. He said, we are already there. What happened? Because the power of the masses have been relegated to the background. And I'll give you an example of Edo State. If truly the masses have power to recall a member of House of Assembly, how will somebody be voted by the masses in his constituency and the person decided not to be sworn in? Maybe because they want to spoil the day they want to do swearing in, or the text message did not arrive on time. If truly the masses that are appointed elected somebody to represent their voice, really have voice, would they not have power to tell their person that is represented, say, sir, either you don't like the day they were sworn in, we want to be represented.
Right.
Oh yeah, we are going with you to House of Assembly with trumpet and everything. Will be dancing while you fulfill your process of you check your paper right, and you now become a member.
That sounds like mini carnival.
Yeah, that all of us, we are the one that sent you to represent us. Now you were not able to meet the deadline. Maybe you were somewhere where the text message come, but we want to be represented. That was why we voted you.
In the first place.
Now we are saying we want our voice to be heard. Now, the few minutes that remain, let us go together. We appointed, if the masses really have power, if it is not one person who said is representing some group of people, and yet they are representing themselves. Look at the National Assembly. How many billion to renovate the place? How many of the people who sent their senator and House of Rep, really it was their mind to paint National Assembly? Is it the desire of the people? Is it the voice of the people that send them from House of Rep and House of Senate to paint their place, when those people that voted for them are living in hut? They are buying a better pass my neighbor generator, where their senator is living a luxury life, and they are using cars that even President of America cannot use. If truly the power belongs to the people,
Nobody will be talking about using
Okay, Bishop,
to represent, to paint National Assembly.
We have some contributions coming through right now. That number is strictly for SMS only. Then, of course, we're live on Twitter as well. The handle is right on the screen for you at Sage Dazo. Somebody here is talking, maybe it's just responding to one of the things that somebody said earlier about the state government and the commitment to development. It says to change this present system in the states, the governor needs to open up the space in the civil service by allowing technocrats to man every sector. This is from Father Balogbo. Okay, that's for Edo State. Happy New Year to all of the staff of ITV and radio, of course, all the discussants as well. He said the truth is that our leaders don't accept that they have failed to provide the good policies and leadership to better the nation and our citizens. You say the citizens also are not ready to change from their old ways, and you go ahead to say a lot of things about how that for us to get to the promised land, we have to work hard and make all the necessary efforts, and so on and so forth. You cannot be giving advice to people to stay here, that's to remain in Nigeria. When most government officials and their children travel overseas, most pastors and their children do the same thing anytime they wish. You say, who will not stay and fix the country? Of course, Bishop Igbasan already, Honorable Uyigu already made that point earlier when he said we all have to be here, put our hands on deck and ensure that we change the narrative for the better together. Also, just so we put this on record, by the way, we're going to be playing a video. It's about Rwanda very shortly. Quite inspiring. It talks about the ICT sector in that country, how they are leveraging tools within the ICT sector to drive development in other critical areas, which is something a handful of young persons are doing, especially in a city like Lagos, where you have so many co-creation hubs. People are doing a lot of things and they're innovating. I'm very sure that's the same pattern be replicated in Edo State with the Innovate Hub that we have here back at home in our states. I mean, you are very familiar with social media and all of the tools that we have there, how that people across the world are leveraging these tools to push narratives, to talk about development and so on and so forth. There's a lot of fighting on Twitter. I mean, Nigeria Twitter, as they call it, right?
Twitter engine.
Yes. Isn't that an example of misplaced priorities?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a misplaced priority because we've seen where, by virtue of the power of social media, the populace have been able to check the excesses of government. It all boils down to having informed populace, and by virtue of the fact that social media is mainly used by youth, it means that if we have well-informed and educated youths, we'll be able to engage our governments more and be able to garner even more developmental strides to various localities. But I like the fact that you mentioned the Innovate Hub that is the brainchild of the current government. Apart from the Innovate Hub, the government has also tried to bring industries, a retinue of industries to the states. We have the production center that is at Sapere, where we have artisans and various skilled men and women carrying out their craft in order to bring better economic prospects to the state. There's also the 5,000 barrels per day modular refinery that has been...
But incidentally, I'm more concerned about social media, how that we can use it to streamline our conversations about this country. Are young people doing that enough beyond selfies on Instagram? That's the point I want us to address.
Yes, when there was this outcry when the National Assembly were about to bring
as some people say, censor the social media.
Right. We had youths and men of goodwill, men and women of goodwill coming to getting on social media to ask the government to stop that, and we've seen that ever since then the outcry, the hula baloo about the curbing social media has actually gone down.
Okay.
We've not heard any of such in recent times. So social media has a lot of power to check excesses of government.
We're going to talk a bit more just to wrap it up in a bit. One contribution here is saying the truth is Nigeria isn't ready to be a country. Then what are we? What are we ready to be? You say we're not ready to be a country yet. You say They are running this country like a company. Bishop Igbasa, God bless you. That's what you're saying. How are you supposed to run a country? I think there's a business angle to running a country everywhere in the world. But again, it depends on what the overall goal is and whose interest is served ultimately. Those are very important issues. Keep those contributions coming through the SMS only number and then using the Twitter handle as well. Now let's take you to East Africa, where a country has been referred to as the Singapore of the continent.
The Ministry of ICT and Innovation came into existence in 2001 with the mandate of promoting science, technology and innovation within the economy. We have a number of agencies that we work directly with who support the promotion of ICT innovation and the adoption, both the adoption but also the creation of ICT products and services. Part of the many projects that we partner on with JICA is the ICT Innovation Ecosystem Strengthening Project, whose aim is to support Rwanda in our process of developing and growing and nurturing an innovation ecosystem.
So I think for investors, the proposition of coming to Rwanda is really very clear. It's really to be based to use Rwanda as a hub to invest in, as a hub to base a business, as a hub to innovate. It's a fantastic place in terms of transparency and visibility and connectivity to really come and develop solutions that will address both the local market and address regional markets as well, and many of the challenges that exist on the continent.
Rwanda has chosen ICT as a key driver for a transformation from a predominantly agrarian economy into a knowledge-based economy and putting Rwanda as an ICT hub. In relation with that, we have different strategic plans that we put in place to use ICT in all the walks of life, in the economy, in our society, in health, agriculture, in education, so that we provide the best environment for investment, best environment for working, and best environment for all the citizens that are living in Rwanda.
We are bringing together world-class universities. We're bringing together tech-oriented companies and startups, as well as other ecosystem enablers to encourage collaboration, co-creation, and really fostering innovation that delivers economic growth, addresses many of the challenges that we still face as we grow our economy and lift people out of poverty.
This is landlocked countries, and we have limited populations and limited resources, but we have huge potential for the people. So we have to improve the people. More becomes a big business opportunities. I think people are very much hope for our Rwandan nation.
We truly believe that it will help Africa transform itself, not just in Rwanda, but the region and Africa.
welcome all business investors that are looking to come into Rwanda. We welcome all partnerships between our very own local.
All right, great. Rwanda is one country that has seen in its own fair share of troubles, whatever that means. I mean, one country where we're told, for example, within the space of 100 days, no less than 800 people were killed. Now, you look at where that country is coming from and where they are today.
8 million.
They've made, some persons said a million, some other records say 800,000.
Okay.
Yeah, but whatever it is, the number was outrageous. I mean, it was a classic case of genocide. All right, but look at where that country is today. For example, you see the progress has been steady. And some people even say very, very massive, to the point that Rwanda is being compared to Singapore. Today, Rwanda, we're told, is one of the 10 best countries for ease of doing business. Some persons say it ranks better than the United States for ease of doing business. Some report says Rwanda is only second to a country like New Zealand as far as ease of doing business is concerned. But whatever it is, it has become the bride of Africa for many investors, and of course, in terms of confidence and so on and so forth. Even though some persons have said political stability is one issue there, then what happens beyond the president of the country, Mr. Paul Kagame? Those are issues we'll be talking about in the days to come. But Uigwe, let's take 1 minute each now to wrap it up, gentlemen. Rwanda is an inspiration in Africa. We can replicate all of this, can't we?
Truth be told, Rwanda has done well in the past few years since their crisis, but Rwanda has not even made, Rwanda, it's still lagging behind Nigeria in that category of development, in ICT, I will say. Okay. I had the opportunity to visit South Africa about 1.5 years ago, and I was amazed at what I saw. The hope of Africa is South Africa. And
but Nigeria is the largest economy.
The hope of Africa
is South Africa.
Is South Africa. And the earlier we recognize that and embrace that fact, the better for everybody. Because South Africa is as advanced and developed as any industrial nation, Europe or the United States. Not quite as big as our economy because, too, there are fewer.
Okay.
Population there, it's, yes. So we are talking of 200 million people sharing what we call the largest economy. They have only about 50 million people sharing their prosperity. So their per capita income is far better than that of Nigeria.
Obviously.
So, but technology-wise, South Africa is head and shoulder above every country in Africa. So we should be having programs, we should be having policies to tie up, to relate with South African industries and see how we can attract assembly plants, not just automobile assembly plants of different equipment, different machineries and appliances to Nigeria. It is cheaper for them, to be cheaper for them to do that, to site their assembly plants in the markets that they are serving, because that will also help them to quickly accomplish full employment. The goal of every economy is to accomplish full employment. Like you made reference to the United States with the report that they get every month of how many jobs are created. Those jobs added are not necessarily by government. That's jobs added by the entire economy. Okay, but they do have statistics for them. And that's what we have to be able to do here. See, here when people are talking about adding jobs, most times they are thinking about what the government can employ. The government only supposed to be in charge of administration.
Okay, I'm going to give 1 minute to Bishop Igbazana, so we're done with this discussion.
I feel that the government must do so much in looking at the youth. In the area of sports, in the area of entertainment, we have a lot of youth who are gifted. Let there be platform created. We've been talking about piracy. Government have not done something headlong on piracy to even the Nollywood today generate a lot of income. If we're able to tie piracy, we encourage the money of those who go into that. Look at the so much employment in Nollywood. In entertainment, we have a lot of people with talent. In the area of sport, let the government focus on this area and create a platform for those who are interested to come on board, so that our youth will be gainfully employed.
Incidentally, that's the much we can take from these discussions. I mean, it's the start of the year. The conversation will continue as we make progress between now and end of 2020. I'd like to thank very especially Fred Uigwe, Honorable Fred Uigwe, politician and economist, Bishop Austin Igbasa, public affairs commentator, and of course, Somade Momosa, another public affairs commentator, and SSA to Edo State Governor on digital media. Gentlemen, we appreciate your presence.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we're done with our discussion here, and back shortly to tie it up on TMI this Thursday. Stay with me.